Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on at 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download, free to use, and both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts. You could call or text into the show at 719-247-1313, or you can simply drop a comment on the live stream of the show wherever you scroll. Producer Ray standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. Well, I've never been accused of being a positive guy, so let's start with the bad news from over the weekend. I didn't think it could get worse than Game 3 for the Denver Nuggets, but it did. It absolutely did. Getting trashed by a Wolves bench player in what will forever be known as the Ayo DeSumo game, 112-96, to put the Nuggets on the verge of elimination. Game 4 was worse than Game 3. But all of this, I had a realization kind of wash over me. And I've had this realization before, but it comes and goes. And I think there's a reason for it. And there's a reason why maybe you've thought of this on occasion, but haven't constantly held it in your mind. All of this stuff we're seeing now with the Denver Nuggets, it happens when a championship window closes. Everything you're seeing. And it starts with letting people that are key to your success walk out the door for whatever reason. The first domino here, if we look at this Nuggets championship window, the first domino to fall to get it to ultimately close was letting Tim Connolly go to Minnesota. Right, was thinking that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. We got Calvin Booth. Let Tim Connolly go and basically take the blueprint of all the strengths and weaknesses of the Denver Nuggets and how to exploit them with him to Minnesota, a team that you see 4 times a year and would probably see more than that in the postseason, which has been the case. I don't know if you've notice that these teams have seen each other a few more than just the 4 regular season meetings lately. That's where it started. And I talked about this. I remember when Mike Vrabel, who at that time was known for just his exploits as a football coach, went to Tennessee. He was a byproduct of the New England Patriots dynasty. And he goes to Tennessee with the blueprint on how to beat a Bill Belichick and Tom Brady coach team, and Tennessee does it. And that's the last game of the Patriot dynasty. Okay, in real life, in history, real life empires have fallen because of populations once a part of that empire breaking away and then attacking the empire. That's what Tim Connolly is doing to the Denver Nuggets. He built up the Nuggets, opened their championship window, and is now among those most responsible for closing it. But there's more to it. There's more that we're seeing, right? A superstar unable to now year after year after year carry this team, make up for any deficiencies that they may have, deficiencies that are naturally occurring because once you get into your championship window, you want to keep your core together. So you pay them a ton of money, and it means that you got to lose guys other places, and you don't have money to necessarily replace what you lost. And yes, part of this, as much as David Adelman will push back, and you will hear plenty from David Adelman on this subject as we move through the program, not being as hungry as you were previously to keep scaling that mountain to win a championship. All of this stuff happens during the course of a team's championship window and ultimately leads to that championship window closing. And this all happens in the modern era of basketball in the course of about 4 to 7 years, right? 7 if you're really fortunate. 4 if maybe you screw some things up along the way and it shuts a little bit faster than you anticipated it. Long gone are the days of Red Auerbach Celtics, right? We can't even comprehend what that Celtics team was doing. But even the Spurs, which the Nuggets try to model themselves out after, perhaps a bit of a fool's errand. Certainly in retrospect, it looks that way. But the Spurs, the exception to the rule, because they were able to successfully rebuild a dynasty on the fly. And despite Calvin Booth's reasonings being sound, he had the right idea. I don't think anybody he has drafted is as good as Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili or Kawhi Leonard. So the Spurs are aspirational. That's funny. I mentioned in the same breath as Kawhi Leonard. Aspirational, but not totally realistic. For most teams, even you look at the Heatles with LeBron, you look at the Golden State Warriors, their window really only lasted 4 to 7 years. It was just that they maximized it, that they won, they got to the finals multiple times, won multiple titles. And here's the realization that comes back to me every once in a while. We're at the end of this championship window, not because necessarily the Nuggets completely blew this and it shut faster than anyone expected it to. It's that we forget and we have to remind ourselves the Nuggets window did not open when they won a title. It opened the minute they exited the bubble. Right? They got to the Western Conference Finals in the bubble, and they went from being this young, up-and-coming, exciting team to a legit contender. They ran into the Lakers, but the very next year, they go out and get Aaron Gordon, start the clock. The timing of Tim Connolly landing Aaron Gordon was perfect. The window opened, he landed Aaron Gordon, and away the Nuggets were supposed to go. And then Jamal Murray misses the next 2 playoffs. Pops his ACL in Oakland. Late in the 2021 season. 2022, he doesn't make it back. So now we're 3 years into this. When they finally win a title. Then they get beat by the Wolves. Year 4, get beat by the Thunder. Year 5, this is year 6. Most championship windows at best last 7 years. And now this is not trying to say, hey, don't be harsh on the Denver Nuggets here. Because, yes, all of this stuff is natural with the closing of a championship window, but you feel like they didn't have a chance to maximize the window, so you want to move the window till now. Well, this is the window closing. And the Jamal Murray thing is not their fault. But other things that they have done has certainly made it so they have failed to maximize the window that has been available. But this is year 6, not year 3. of the Denver Nuggets championship window. And all of those things that I mentioned that tend to happen with these teams that are in championship windows, it's all happening now at the same time. And that's why it feels like the Nuggets are absolutely crumbling. So, I mean, again, this isn't supposed to make you feel better. This is just me stating facts. I mean, this is the end of the Denver Nuggets being a real title contender in this form. And I don't want to get too far into the future about who or who may not be with this team moving forward. But we'll have that conversation soon enough. Unless they undergo significant transformation, I don't know when they will open back up the window. But what we are left with now, as the series is still going on, as the Nuggets are technically still in the postseason, even though it may not feel that way, it's just about assessing what is the number one cause here. I pointed out a lot of different things that are going on right now with the Denver Nuggets, both about the window closing, but also this Minnesota series. Why has it gone so poorly? We're not even getting compelling basketball games on a night-to-night basis. This is not a back-and-forth tug-of-war. Not in the end. I mean, game 4 was back and forth for a little while, and then ABC cut to the White House, and then if you didn't go to ESPN and you came back and the game completely flipped. But this isn't and forget who you picked to win this series. This series hasn't even gone the way that most of us thought it would. You know, back and forth, late game heroics, all of this kind of stuff. It's just been Minnesota piling on to the Denver Nuggets these last 3 games. So what is the main culprit? What is going wrong? Because if the Nuggets figure out and get right what the main problem is, considering the issues that the Timberwolves are facing from a personnel standpoint, the Nuggets could have a path back to win this series. But unless they address the things that ail them, the fact that Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo out aren't going to make a lick of difference. So that's what I want to get into next. There are a lot of things going wrong. What's the number one thing that's causing all of this? I think I know the answer. See if you agree. In the meantime, 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Nuggets. We'll get into what the Avalanche were able to do, but let's face it, we got like 10 days to talk about the Avs. Game 5 with the Nuggets and Wolves is tonight, 8:30, Extra Sports 1300. We'll keep the conversation there when we return here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Peyton Berman on the Instagram live stream with 3 initials that underline what I was discussing in the first segment. KCP. Yes. Letting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope go, banking on Christian Braun being equal to what they got in KCP, and I'm still waiting for that. Even though now Christian Braun is going to make more money than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did with the Denver Nuggets. I'm not saying that the championship window closing is not without its missteps by the Denver Nuggets. I'm just saying that these kind of missteps do tend to happen to other teams as well as championship windows are closing. This is not, and that's not to say, hey, stop, bullying the Denver Nuggets. Like, no, if they're making mistakes, you call them out on it. Because again, the championship window is closing, and I guess this is the way I would put it. Did you maximize the window? Maybe it was always going to come to an end in the next year or two. But did you do enough? Let's say, okay, the Jamal Murray years were the Jamal Murray years. You won a title in the 2 years after. Did you do enough the year after you won a title and the year after that to try and get back there? Did you make the right decisions to try and maximize the window that was realistically only going to be open for 4 to 7 years? And I don't think the Nuggets have done that. So therein lies the criticism. They're not alone in having a championship window closed despite having a lot of talent. And you looking at them and swearing that they are still a championship team. But did they do everything in their power? And I don't think they did. KCP is a good example. Letting things with Michael Malone and Calvin Booth get to the point that they were at is another way. I mean, Josh Kroenke admitted that he was 2 hands off the wheel. You think because a team wins a title that you set on cruise control, that you could take your hands off, and that's not the case. That you need to lean into it. You need to be, I'm not saying being a meddling owner, but you got to be acutely aware of what's going on. This is delicate. This is precious, what's going on. You need to be around. You need to be looking out for the signs. And Josh Kroenke himself admitted that he let what happened with Calvin Booth and Michael Malone go on too long. The amount of time that it's taken the Nuggets to go from title contender to now window closed is natural. But if this thing is closing and you got one title out of it, you didn't maximize it. And it was some of your own decisions that caused you not to maximize it. Now, the Wolves series, but also bigger picture here. What is the main thing that's going wrong with the Denver Nuggets right now? There's a whole host of things going wrong. What's at the top of the list? And I'll start here. This team is built on a very simple premise. We have the best player in the world. That's what this team is built on. And you are seeing when Nikola Jokic is not playing like the best player in the world, everything falls apart. The understanding that this team is built on is that Nikola Jokic will force teams to double him, to triple him, because he is such a tour de force that if you leave him one-on-one, He is going to destroy you. Remember Tyronn Lue in a game with the Clippers, right? He said after the game, our plan, we thought it was a solid plan. We would stay one-on-one with Jokic. We wouldn't help. We turn him into a scorer. I didn't think he dropped 50 on us. Okay, so it's one thing to say, oh, we'll just let Nikola Jokic be a scorer. But if he's putting up 50 on you, it's hard to stay with that. So the idea is you can't help it but commit more numbers. And maybe it's not a game plan. Maybe it's just a natural thing that a teammate looks over at the guy guarding Nikola Jokic and saying, my God, this dude needs some help. Nikola Jokic is destroying him. And you just move up, like, I'll be here if you need me. Just call me over. I'm going to slide a little bit. And then that's when Jokic hits you. That's when he finds the open guy. Nikola Jokic talked about this after game 3. If he's not effective as a scorer, then it allows everyone else on the team to just stay where they're at. Guard your guy. I got Jamal, you got Christian, you got Aaron Gordon, you got Cam Johnson. Now, there's, I think, a good reason why Nikola Jokic, maybe a few reasons why Nikola Jokic is looking like less than the best player in the world right now. Part of it is Rudy Gobert's defense. You have to give him credit. But I think Nikola Jokic is more injured than anybody wants to let on to. The number of shots that he has missed, the number of shots he's left short in this series, tell me health-wise he's not quite right. Which is forgivable. I mean, at least he's out there. And I thought in game 4, for most of the game, he was quite effective. But he's not able to put together 4 quarters, 40 minutes of dominant best player in the world basketball. He just hasn't done it yet. But everything else short circuits around him when that happens. Because the Nuggets don't have shot creators. Jamal Murray is one. But on the whole, these other guys are not shot creators. They can't beat guys off the dribble. They are shot makers, at least supposedly. Not seeing a lot of that this series, but supposedly these are shot makers, not shot creators. And right now, the Denver Nuggets need shot creators against the Minnesota defense. So look, you're the best player in the world. You are held to the highest of standards, and Nikola Jokic hasn't met that, and he'd be the first person to admit it, which he did after game 4.
Average.
He's been average. And so, and I even said this on Friday, it'd be nice if some of the guys on his team, other than Jamal Murray, and obviously Aaron Gordon's injury is all a part of this as well. But it'd be nice if some of these other guys on the bench, a Christian Brown, a Cam Johnson, would help the guy out. But then I was thinking over the weekend and watching game 4, like, what is easier? To ask a bunch of guys to be something they are not, or to ask Nikola Jokic to be something that he has been throughout this entire championship window, which is arguably, if not clearly, the best player in the world. What's easier? What's more likely to happen? So you could sit there, as I have, and look at some of these players, like the one they traded for from Brooklyn, and like the guy they just handed over $20 million to, and say, do more. Are they capable of that? Are we sure the best of Christian Braun was coming off the bench in 2023? But the tricky part here is you can criticize Nikola Jokic for not playing at his best to a degree, but you don't want to go too far because you know that he has done everything for this team. When Jamal Murray was out, he single-handedly dragged them through series. And it's natural. It's natural to go, wait, but I don't want to go too far on this guy. But to say he's not, he's above getting criticized, I don't think so. And he's the first person to criticize himself, calling himself average. Which when it comes to Nikola Jokic, that's basically saying that another player is garbage. The mere idea that Nikola Jokic is average is like blasphemous. But that's almost pretty much what he's been throughout this series. So tonight, and if there is a tomorrow, what is the easier thing to ask? Cam Johnson and Christian Braun to suddenly morph into something they are not, or Nikola Jokic to get back to what he has been routinely? But the Nuggets issues all start there. It's not the only issues, but they really all stem from that because this team was built on the premise that every single night Nikola Jokic is going to be the best player on the floor and the best player in the world. And here's the criticism that you levy at the Denver Nuggets. Do you not have a plan B? What did anybody in the Nuggets front office over the last 3 years ask themselves, what if Nikola Jokic isn't right? What if he's not playing as the best player in the world? Do we have enough to get by in that doomsday scenario? I think this series has given you your answer. I don't know that it was as much of a consideration. I think they took it for granted, and this has been a recurring theme when it comes to the Nikola Jokic era in Denver, taking this guy for granted. Oh, he'll figure it out. And even I'm a little bit guilty of it because I'm saying what needs to happen tonight in Game 5. Nikola Jokic needs to get back to being the best player in the world. But I'm also saying that because there is just no other option. The answer isn't coming from Christian Braun. Aaron Gordon's not getting healthier. There are no answers on the bench unit. And David Adelman doesn't seem like he has a ton of answers either. The only guy that's capable of saving the Denver Nuggets is Nikola Jokic. But he has not been able to save them the last 3 games. Can he tonight? We'll find out together. Again, you can listen to the game at 8:30 on Extra Sports 1300, or you can watch the game at the Brass Tap just off of Bass Pro Drive. $3.50 pints, Coors Light, Coors Banquet, Miller Lite, and Mountain Time. It's a great time, great place to watch a game. Go check them out off of Bass Pro Drive. When we come back, David Adelman speaks and goes at you, the critic of the fight that his team has or in your mind has not displayed in this series. Wednesday night, Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC is at Dick's Sporting Goods Park taking on the Colorado Rapids in the round of 16 of the U.S. Open Cup. Be there to witness history. Tickets still available, and I still think there are a couple spots on the supporters buses. I would hurry, though. SwitchbacksFC.com is where you go to get your tickets first and foremost, but then any information on transportation up there if you're not looking to drive yourself. Of course, Roland and I will be on the call for that one if you want to tune in at 7 on the Extra Sports 1300 app. Sticking with the Nuggets here, and we'll get to the Avs at the top of the hour. I use the top of the hour for a natural reset here. I do think all the Nuggets issues right now are stemming from the fact that Nikola Jokic is not playing at the best player of the world in the world level. I think it starts there. But I do still think that this Nuggets team is lacking some of the fight that they are certainly getting from the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I now know that I probably shouldn't bring that up to David Adelman if I want to be invited to his house over the holidays.
You don't think we were competitive tonight?
The last 3 games, it doesn't seem like it to me. Do you think your group's?
Yeah, I do. I thought we were very competitive tonight. And again, I think it's hilarious that the narrative is offense doesn't matter. You shoot 24% in the second half. It's hard to win. I thought our guys played their ass off throughout that first half. I thought they maintained a physicality about them. You give those guys credit. I mean, 2 guys off their bench had 60 points combined. I don't think that's from competitive spirit issues. That's 2 guys having a great night and us having a really tough second half offensively. The 9 turnovers for 13 points and 24%. That's not a competitive thing. That's just having a really tough second half offensively with a chance to break the game open in the third quarter. That's how I saw it.
Okay, a few things there. Okay. I do think that they played harder than they seemed to play in game 3. I will give that to the Denver Nuggets. Do I still think they're playing as hard as the Minnesota Timberwolves? No. No, I do not. So my point about rekindling that fire that the Nuggets had as they were building towards the title in 2023, I think still stands. But here's where all the David Adelman, what he said, comes into play. Okay, you played harder. I still don't think you're playing as hard as the Wolves. I still don't look at the Denver Nuggets and say they want this as much as Minnesota. I just don't. And nothing David Adelman can say on that subject will change my mind. However, it is something that you can overcome if the other things go right. And that's where what David Adelman says comes into play. And you notice that David Adelman, in that 46-second clip I just played, did not mention the defensive end of the floor once, other than say give, and he didn't mention him by name, but Ayo Dosunmu credit. I actually look at this equation the opposite way. What he wants to do is give no credit to the Timberwolves defense, say that everything that's happening when the Nuggets have the ball is on the Denver Nuggets because they're not making shots and they're turning the ball over. And they're almost independent of the way Minnesota is playing defensively. But on the other end of the floor, he wants to give Minnesota all the credit in the world and not point out the clear deficiencies in his team. I flip it the other way. I want to give Minnesota a ton of credit on the defensive side. I think a lot of the reason why the Nuggets aren't making shots is because of Minnesota's defense. Again, as I said in the last segment, they are shot makers. They are not shot creators. And when the defenders like Jaden McDaniels and some of these other players are so into you, you have to be able to create your own shot. And the Nuggets right now cannot do that. And I think that has a whole heck of a lot to do with Minnesota's defense. If I were sitting in David Adelman's position, I would be giving Minnesota a ton of credit when we have the ball. And what I am doing is pointing out that we are not doing enough defensively to win these games. What happened with Ayo DeSumo on Saturday is it cannot happen. You cannot let a team that suffered not one, but two blows to morale. They lost Dante, and everyone knew it in the moment. Everyone knew that he ripped his Achilles. They do that, and then they lose Anthony Edwards, and still you allow them to flip the game in the second half and beat you. With Ayo DeSumo having the game of his life. That can't happen unless you are not a playoff caliber defense. And therein lies why David Adelman will not talk too much about the defensive side. Because what this team is not capable of, and I don't know how many more games we need to see this. We may only see it one more, and then we got to judge because that'll be the end of the Nuggets season. This team is not playing playoff caliber defense. And that was one of the questions because they hadn't been that throughout the season. They would have been, if they would have won a title, been the worst defense to win a title other than the 0-1 Lakers in 30 years. What's happening on the offensive end, that's, and I get David Adelman's rationale. David Adelman is looking at this like, what can I fix? What can be fixed? It's like my question of what should you say needs to happen? What should you believe could happen tonight to keep the Nuggets alive in this series? That Christian Brown all of a sudden becomes the guy that Calvin Booth thought he was? Or that Nikola Jokic plays like the best player in the world? What do you think is more likely tonight? It's the same thing here. David Adelman is making a calculation in his mind. What can be fixed? What is easier to ask my team to do? To be better offensively and start making shots? Or to be able to defend anything that Minnesota is doing when they have the basketball? So I think that's what's going through David Adelman's head. But I think the issues when the Nuggets have the ball, the Minnesota Timberwolves deserve a ton of credit for that. And what's happening on the other side of the court, that's where I don't want to give the Wolves too much credit. I don't want to give Ayo DeSumo all the credit in the world like David Adelman wants to do. I think Ayo DeSumo is only able to do that against the 21st ranked defense in the NBA. So I would flip it around here. But I also think David Adelman's doing something that I noticed in the corporate world that I live in. It sounds to me, I don't know if you feel the same way. It sounds to me like David Adelman is trying to defend himself as much as he's defending the team. Think about it, okay? And this is more to him bristling at the idea that his team isn't working hard. Okay, if we can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that the issue for the Denver Nuggets is that they aren't playing hard, who does that fall on? Who do we equate motivation to? The head coach. What do we attribute a lack of execution? We're not making shots. Are you putting that on David Adelman ultimately? That the Nuggets are making shots? When's the last shot that he took? No, you put that on the players. This is a bit of a defense mechanism. I think that's kicking in with David Adelman. Something that is kicking in with the guy that understands that his employment beyond this year is not necessarily promised. If it's a motivation issue, everyone's going to put it on him. If it's just a simple execution issue, hey, it's not the Minnesota defense. We're getting open looks. We're doing all the right things. We aren't knocking down shots. That's not on David Adelman. He's scheming it up to get open shots. It sounds like a guy that even if he doesn't mean to do this, he's coming across like a guy that's trying to make an argument through the media that he should keep his job. And coaches do this. David Adelman's hardly the first. I think Michael Malone kind of did this towards the end. He's like, do I really want to go down with the sinking ship relying on Julian Strother and Jalen Pickett? Or am I going to go down on this sinking ship riding Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray? I think coaches do this all the time. They want to be able to sit at a podium after a game, or more importantly, sit in the office of their boss when the season ends and be able to defend what they did. Now, Michael Malone, what I talked about with Michael Malone, that's more about him trying to keep the ship from sinking. He didn't want to risk the ship completely going down because he's giving Julian Strother and Jalen Pickett minutes. What David Adelman's doing is not uncommon around coaches, and we see this in the NFL a lot, right? In play calls. Why'd you pass it on third down instead of run it? Sean Payton on fourth down, why did you throw it? Maybe not the best example because there's not really a defense for that. But we do this when we do the Monday morning quarterbacking. We talk about, this guy should have ran the ball, or should he pass the ball, or he should have done this with the play calling. And what goes in, whether the coaches want to admit it or not, is what they can sell. What makes sense. I put the ball in the hands of my best player. Or I wanted to, cut down on the risk of turning the ball over. So I ran the ball when you all thought I was going to pass it. Coaches, it enters into their mind consciously or subconsciously. What can I defend in the post-game press conference? And what can I defend if I am called into the office of my owner? I think David Adelman's doing that. It's not that this team isn't motivated. Don't say that. This team's not making shots. They're open. They have shots. They have plenty of shots. I've schemed them open against the vaunted Minnesota defense. You're just missing them. I don't think that's really what's happening, but that's what David Adelman's trying to sell. If this team is not motivated, then what was the reason for hiring David Adelman in the first place? A main part of making David Adelman the full-time head coach after he got the interim stint was this team responds to him in a way they did not respond to Michael Malone, because Michael Malone was toxic. That whole situation, toxic. Nobody wanted to listen to anybody. There was discord throughout the group, but David Adelman has come in and everyone's spirits are lifted. Everyone's motivated. Everyone's ready to give it their all because they love playing for David Adelman. If this team isn't motivated, then it makes Josh Kroenke completely rethink his decision to remove the interim tag from David Adelman. I'm not saying this is necessarily David Adelman trying to throw his players under the bus. It is a self-preservation mechanism that kicks into all of us in the corporate world. I want to be able to justify why this happened. Something went bad. This is why I did it. It's not on me. It's on somebody else. Can't wait for game 5. Can you? Coming up next, let's shift our focus here to the Avs. They do nothing wrong. They are perfect. That's next. Welcome in. Appreciate you tuning in. Anywhere you scroll, you can watch this show live on a daily basis at 740 KVOR and at Extra Sports 1300. While you are there, like, subscribe, follow, and most importantly, comment. If you are listening to the show or you just like to use text and calling for communication, which is cool, 719-247-1313. We'll get back to the Nuggets conversation, specifically when it comes to Game 5 tonight. But I do want to get in a few words about the well-behaved child in the Kroenke family, which is the Colorado Avalanche, as they finished off their 4-game sweep of the LA Kings with a 5-1 rout. Here's the captain, Nathan MacKinnon, on the difficulty of closing out the Kings and what they did to actually get it done.
We knew they were going to come. I felt like we weathered the storm early on, and obviously get one on the power play in the first. I can kind of calm the nerves a little bit and settle us in. So, but to reiterate what Nate just said and talked about, our checking game was really solid tonight. Felt like we got on top of pucks early throughout offensive zone, but also in the neutral zone. We're able to force them to dump some pucks in, and then we're kind of quick in and out of our zone for the most part. Yeah, it is a tough one to get. It's not easy to close a team out, especially in their building, a desperate team. But I thought we did a good job, and we settled in nicely to the game, and everybody contributed. We did what we needed to do.
And there was a moment in yesterday's game, and I tweeted this out when it happened, and it didn't look like I was going to be right initially, but then I ended up right. When Cale Makar, just with another, I mean, he's only scored 2 goals in this series. They're both phenomenal goals. But he makes that move to cut to the inside and to score that goal on Anton Forsberg. I tweeted out this game might get out of hand, because that was a will-breaking type goal, right? The LA Kings have built their entire identity around we can slow down even the mighty Avalanche. And to their credit, they had for most of the series. But being down 3-0, now being down 2-0, and the game and the goal that makes it 2-0 is just like it's got to make you feel like, what the heck can we even do with this guy? Like, we've done a pretty good job all series. We can't stop that. What are you supposed to do? I thought that was the moment that the game would get out of hand. Now, there was kind of a cheap goal, kind of a bouncer past Scott Wedgwood that made it seem like maybe the LA Kings were not going away yet. But I thought right after that Cale goal, everything kind of opened up. The Avalanche had more space to operate. It got a little bit more end-to-end action, a little bit more free-flowing, and that is not good for the LA Kings. And eventually it did end up with the Avalanche winning, going away. But to Gabriel Landeskog's point, it is not easy to close a team out. But once the Avs got that 2-goal lead, and the way they did it with that ridiculous move by Cale Makar, that you can't stop it. I thought the realization from the LA Kings that their fate, they would accept it. Like, all right, we've pushed and we've tried, and we just can't figure out a way to beat this team. We're done. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Like, I give the Kings a ton of credit, because there are teams that could have matched up with the Avalanche that would not put up the fight that LA did. So full marks to them, but they are just not in the Avalanche's weight class. And you saw that throughout the series. And really, there was two keys to the Avalanche essentially being able, to pull off this sweep, despite how well LA had played throughout the series. And here's Jared Bednar on the first reason.
The bulk of our team is like they want to get up and go and create offense, and sometimes the flashier the better, and the more dynamic we can be, the better. And that's fun way to play, no question. It's not as fun to commit on the defensive side and really dig in there and spend a bunch of energy there in order to sort of chip away at the game. But I think they bought into the way we needed to play the LA Kings.
They bought into the style that was necessary to win. And as long as they committed to that with the talent that they have, the ability, let's not forget that they were the best team this year in the NHL in terms of allowing the fewest goals. Everyone focuses on the most goals, which they have scored this season. They allowed the fewest. I've said going into the series, throughout the series, they can do this. They can play this style. And they did that. But there's something in addition to the buy-in, the being willing for 60 minutes for 4 games, playing the style that Los Angeles was going to at times force them to play and be totally fine with it. And not take a shift off and keep pushing and be opportunistic when it called for it. But beyond that, Biz said this after the game was over on TNT. And it's a phrase I've used many a time talking about this Avalanche team. It's just so businesslike. It's just, you are a means for us to get to the other side here. You are not, how do I want to put it? You are not, this destination is not playing you in the series. We got bigger plans. We have different places to go here. You are just merely in our way, and we are going to not waste a single second in dispatching you so we can move on to when our playoffs truly begin. And we get a team that is in our weight class, whether it be Minnesota or Dallas. This team's just relentless pursuit of getting this thing over with as fast as they could. It's not a trait that is held by every team in this league. Carolina, as I have pointed out multiple times, Carolina is Colorado's doppelganger. Carolina can say the same thing. They had a chance to dispatch of Brady Tkachuk, and they're like, yep, you're done in 4. We're moving on here. But look at everybody else. All these other series. Boston right there in the series with Buffalo, they get absolutely demolished yesterday. Vegas is playing with their food and messing around. I thought Vegas was going to go right through Utah. If I'm being honest, not in terms of blowing them out every game, but I thought Vegas, with their pedigree, with John Tortorella now behind the bench, I didn't think that series would be Vegas needs to win tonight, and that's exactly what it is. Look at everybody else in the how chaotic everything else is. Last night with Edmonton, you'd be so sure that Edmonton would find a way to win that game. And yet now their backs are against the wall of the Anaheim Ducks. That I believe John Carlson is the only player on this team that has any playoff experience. Like, these are all With all due respect, these are all kids on this Anaheim team. And the Florida Panthers are finally out of the way, and Edmonton's going to get bounced in the first round? Like, look at all of these other series. Like Dallas, Minnesota, we knew that was going to be a dogfight, right? I'm not talking about Dallas or Minnesota. That is playoff caliber. That is two teams playing at a very high level in that series. But all these other series, it's like you tune in on any given night, and one team or the other is just kind of, they don't have that business-like approach. Playing with their food a little bit, messing around, they don't quite have it. Avalanche and Carolina, too, give them credit. They did not want to waste any time with these lesser opponents. They want to get on to the real thing. And these are two teams, and I think it's born out of a couple of different things. One is that the Avalanche and the Hurricanes are both in a situation where, I mean, they got to meet each other for the cup. Like, that's what's got to happen. And maybe Dallas can raise their hand, or Edmonton can raise their hand and say, hey, we have similar thoughts about where we should be ending up, and that's fair. But Colorado and Carolina are two teams, like, getting bounced in the first round, even letting a first round opponent push them to 6 or 7 games would be viewed as somewhat of a failure. Like, what are you doing messing around with Ottawa and LA? Like, these are two teams that are absolutely cup or bust. The East without Florida is wide open. And the team that really should be taking advantage and should end up coming out of that side of the bracket is Carolina. And I thought they played like it in their first round series. And turning over to the Avalanche, same thing. Now, if it's Dallas next round, then there's some other stuff that goes into it that makes their safe passage to the Western Conference Finals far from a certainty. But these are teams that are hell-bent on having a chance to lift the Stanley Cup. And teams that are not even close to as good as them, they should not have any problem with. And Carolina and Colorado did not have any problem. Not really. Right? Both 4-game sweeps. That means you didn't have, maybe the games were a little bit more contentious than you hoped they'd be, but in the end, you didn't have much of a problem with them. And I think right there, hand in hand with, the Avalanche being this cup or bust team, is Gabriel Landeskog. I think he is at the center of all of this. The mentality, that business-like approach of the Colorado Avalanche. And here's Nathan MacKinnon on the difference of having Gabe for the whole season and then the playoffs, as opposed to just getting him back for the playoffs. I think very insightful from the normally soft-spoken Nathan MacKinnon. Take a listen.
The last 3 years have kind of flew by quick, and I don't think it did for him, but he worked extremely hard to get back, and I think now, it just feels normal again. It was for me. I was with him for 10 years before the injury, so I think it's just normal. This is how it's supposed to be, and I just think it's less of a thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a lot of emotions last year watching him come back. But now we're just kind of chugging along here and just trying to win some series.
I think that's really insightful, because we had this conversation last year leading up and during the Dallas series. Like, when are you going to get Gabriel Landeskog back in the lineup? Like, this is a massive deal. Getting Gabriel Landeskog back. You're just going to sneak him into game 2? I think that's Nathan McKinnon with a year behind them to be able to admit, like, they always wanted Gabriel Landeskog back. They wanted that for them. But earlier in his comment there, he said that Gabriel Landeskog was almost bigger. His return was almost bigger than the game. And nobody wants to throw around the D word, distraction, but I think that's Nathan McKinnon letting on like we had to focus on Dallas, but we also had this huge freaking thing that was happening. And maybe the Avalanche last year had some trouble balancing between the two. But now Gabriel Landeskog being back is not new. And it's almost like they're, like Nathan McKinnon said, it's almost like this is the year after they beat Tampa Bay. And it feels normal and the band's back together. And they're trying to pick up where they left off. They can't get those years back. But like we were talking about with the Nuggets earlier, can you maximize the window that you have? Those were lost years. Can you take advantage of this moment that's in front of you? And the Avalanche have taken that first step by dispatching of the LA Kings in 4 games. And now we wait. Oh boy, do we wait. Might be 10 days before the Avalanche are back out on the ice. But as Gabriel Landeskog said, it's not a bad thing for me to get a little bit of rest.
And I think it'll be good for everybody to rest up here for a few days, but especially for a 41-year-old, so it'll be good.
I mean, that's really nice of Gabriel Landeskog to be thinking about me. Oh, he's talking about Brett Burns. Brett Burns, 41 years old, not Ryan Kaufman, 40. Okay, I got it. It's going to be too much waiting. I'll just tell you. I'm not saying that it's going to have, it might have a little bit of an impact on game 1, whether it's Minnesota or Dallas. But the reason why the Avalanche, if they lose this next series, it's not going to be because they had too many days off. They lose game 1, it might be because they had too many days off. But the series is long. We expect it to be a long one, whether it's Minnesota or whether it's Dallas. The Avalanche will have plenty of time to get back into the swing of things here. But I'm just saying from a waiting perspective, it's going to be too long. It might be too long before the end of this week. You may be waking up on Thursday and you're saying, can the Avalanche start now already? It's going to be too long of a wait. But you got to use rest as a weapon. And it has to be. And that was the whole premise of this season. Avs get the number 1 seed, so they get the easier matchup in the first round. They force Dallas and Minnesota to rip each other's heads off over a 7-game series, while the Avalanche don't incur any more injuries and they get to rest up the ones they have. Josh Manson comes immediately to mind. Avs on through. By the way, Dallas and Minnesota tied up at 2 games apiece. It went into overtime on Saturday. Dallas maybe with the chance to go up 3-1, but Minnesota pulled it out, 1 in overtime. And so that series has got at least 2 more games. And I don't believe they play tonight. I think they get an extra day before a pivotal game 5. So rest well, knowing that the Avalanche remain in the postseason. The other team that we talk a lot about on this show, I don't know how much longer they're going to be in it, but this series has taken on a bit of a different look with what happened to Minnesota in game 4 in terms of the injuries, but why this puts the Denver Nuggets in a no-win situation. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Game 5 tonight between the Nuggets and the Wolves. Nuggets trying to, of course, stay alive, down 3-1 in the series. Here's David Adelman's promise to you, the Nuggets fan.
And I really mean it when I say this. We've been down 0-2, tied at 2-2. We've been down 3-1. We've seen all these things. So the panic's not going to be there. It's just, but without the panic, there has to be a responsibility to get better for game 4.
Oh, that was for game 4. We've had so much audio lately. Here it is. Here's game 5. Sorry. Let's play this one.
Expect us to have a great effort in game 5. I'm going to keep saying this. I don't know if you guys think I'm going to come in here and talk negatively about my team when they played that hard. That's the way I saw it. And I really trust our 2 best players will find a rhythm. And they have to find that at home in game 5. And that allows us to get back to this gym, like I said, and that's our opportunity.
And again, it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. We know that both are problems, right? What's going on with Nikola Jokic is a problem, maybe the biggest problem of this series, but it's also a problem that no one else on the Denver Nuggets is capable of picking up Nikola Jokic when he's struggling. But what's easier to ask? What makes more sense that could happen tonight? That Nikola Jokic looks more like the best player in the world again, or that one of these supporting cast members steps up to a leading role? I know we just saw Ayo DeSumo have the game of his life. I'm not there right now with the Denver Nuggets where I think that anybody on this team is capable of having that kind of a night other than Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic. But let's just say they do get it done. I think that the Nuggets right now have put themselves in a no-win situation. Because obviously, if they lose tonight, then it's you just lost in 5 games to the Minnesota Timberwolves that were a lower seed than you, that lost DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards. You lost game 4 without either of those 2 guys, and you lose game 5 without either of those 2 guys on the court. And I know that the Nuggets, and Ray, keep an eye out if they give an official word on Aaron Gordon's status for tonight. But yes, the Nuggets are not at full strength. They don't have Aaron Gordon. They don't have Peyton Watson. But the Wolves don't have Anthony Edwards. And you lose back-to-back games without Anthony Edwards on the floor, basically. So if they lose, that's obvious. But even if they win now, let's say, and there is a non-zero chance that they win this series now with how banged up Minnesota is. I don't think they will, but let's play the hypothetical game. Minnesota running on adrenaline in game 4. No Anthony Edwards, no Dante DiVincenzo. Will win it for them. And then the realization sets in, oh crap, one of our best role players and our best player are out and they're not coming back. And the Nuggets are able to take care of home court tonight. They go back to Minnesota, and Ray and I were having a healthy conversation about this. I won't say arguing or bickering or fighting or throwing punches. Well, he threw a punch at me. I didn't throw a punch at him. I'm a pacifist. Anyway, I don't think that the Wolves have any pressure on them tonight because they got game 6 back in their barn. If the Nuggets win tonight, the pressure will go up on Minnesota. The hypothetical game will be being played in Minneapolis and St. Paul, where what if the Denver Nuggets come in and beat the Wolves in game 6? A Wolves team without Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo, and then game 7 is back in Denver. That's when the pressure goes up on Minnesota. I think tonight they don't have a pressure, which is why I say It's not a foregone conclusion that the Nuggets win tonight, despite the fact that they're 11.5-point favorites. In fact, if I were taking my hard-earned money, and I'm not telling you to take yours, I'm telling you what I would do with my money, I'd take Minnesota plus the points. But if the Nuggets win this game, Minnesota comes back as shorthanded as they were for tonight's game, with the idea that if they don't take care of business on their home floor, the series goes back to Denver for Game 7, and the Nuggets have the best player on the court, and da-dum. So tonight, I think there's pressure on the Denver Nuggets to win this one, and they should win this one. Right? I'm not necessarily predicting they will, but in theory they should, because it's the least you can do after the series has unfolded this way. At least allow your home fans to have a good night at the arena before you go back to Minnesota and then get eliminated in Game 6, right? Which I think a lot of people are starting to think that's kind of the way it will go. So the Nuggets should win tonight to at least give their fans a happy moment before Thursday. But let's say that they end up winning the whole series. However it comes about, pressure gets to Minnesota because they had the Nuggets dead to rights, and without Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo, they let him off the hook, and Nikola Jokic starts to look like the best player in the world. Fill in whatever scenario you want to, and let's just say that the Nuggets win the series. What will be said? No, Nuggets just beat a Timberwolves team without Anthony Edwards. That's nothing. They'll just get smoked by San Antonio. This is the lose-lose situation that they are in. They lose. Everyone points and laughs because they lost to a team without Anthony Edwards. But if they win, no one's going to give them any credit. Nobody's going to start talking about how David Adelman got the most out of his team. They'll be saying they just took advantage of a severely undermanned Minnesota team. This doesn't mean that if fully healthy, they can get past Minnesota. Like, look, if you don't think this is going to happen, go onto Twitter and see what people say about the Nuggets title run. A title run that we thought in the moment was as ironclad and beyond reproach as you could get. They went through Ant. They went through the Suns, who so many people were sure that they would go to the NBA Finals because they acquired Kevin Durant. They went to LeBron. They exercised those demons. The Lakers always beat the Nuggets, and yet the Nuggets prevailed. And then they went to the NBA Finals, and I get it. Miami on paper was not, the best opponent that the Nuggets could have drawn, but Miami did knock off a couple of heavyweights in the East to get there. And I think we would have been fine if people said, well, once they got to the finals, they were playing a lesser Miami team. Okay, but what about the West? That was supposed to be so scary with Anthony Edwards in Minnesota, with Kevin Durant in Phoenix, with LeBron and AD in the Lakers. They get credit for that at least, don't they? Not right now. And it's partly because the Nuggets are looking the way they are now. People are saying, well, I don't even know if that title run was legitimate, which is the dumbest discourse that we have in all of sport. Even I will defend to the death that the Lakers won a legitimate championship in the bubble. Everyone had to play by the same rules. That was that year's championship. But it's the worst discourse to, start to go back and pick apart somebody's title run. But people were doing it with the Nuggets. They did it in the moment they lifted the Larry O'Brien trophy. They proceeded to do it the next year when they got bounced by Minnesota. They took a little bit of a hiatus because it was viewed that, the Nuggets pushed the mighty Thunder to 7 games, and now it's started back up again. So if they win this series, they will get zero credit. And I don't even know if they deserve credit. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm defending the title run. I don't know that we would arrive at any different conclusion. I mean, there would have to be some improvement. We'd have to be talking about something changing with the Denver Nuggets. We know something's changed with Minnesota. Something had to have changed with the Denver Nuggets if they win the next 3 games. But I don't know if we'll look at it like that's the question I will pose to you. And we also have a Facebook question, which is, do the Nuggets survive tonight? Let's start with game 5. But beyond that, if the Nuggets figure enough out to win this series against a Minnesota team without Dante DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards, are you going to feel like we're right back on track here? There's a little speed bump, but the Nuggets are right back on track to meet up with OKC in the Western Conference Finals and maybe get past them. I think there would be more dread than anything else if the Nuggets rally from 3-1 down, because people are like, oh no, now they're going to get killed by Wemby. Nuggets have done this to themselves. Let's be fair about this, but it feels like they're in a no-win situation. You lose, you couldn't even beat an undermanned Wolves team. You win, you only beat an undermanned Wolves team, and your appearance in the second round is fraudulent. I think the Nuggets would deal with that second scenario. But no margin for error. Got to get this one first and foremost. 8:30 tonight. You could hear it on Extra Sports 1300, or you could watch the game at the Brass Tap just off of Bass Pro Drive. They're offering $3.50 pints of Coors Light, Coors Banquet, Miller Lite, and also Mountain Time. Very popular on the telecasts, local telecasts of those the teams that call this state home. So Brass Tap off of Bass Pro Drive, highly recommend. We'll have more Drive Time Sports after this on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Join us Monday, May 4th. That's coming up at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the Small Business Week Bash. Enjoy awards, networking, festivities, and live music as we kick off Small Business Week, complete with workshops, panels, and networking events. Small Business Week is hosted by the Pikes Peak SBDC, Colorado Springs Chamber, and EDC and the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado. Register now at kvor.com. Nuggets. I want to talk about what happened on Saturday towards the end of the game. Now, I'll just say this off the top. I'm glad that no one was suspended on the Wolves side. And I'll tell you why. That may sound weird. I don't know how many players the Nuggets can afford for the Wolves to lose if they want any hope of winning Game 5. I mean, really think about it. They lose Dante DiVincenzo. And then they lose Anthony Edwards, and the Wolves still win the game. I shudder to think what they have behind Ayo DeSumo. Who's the guy that's not getting minutes that's going to come out and destroy the Denver Nuggets if somebody else on the Minnesota Timberwolves gets hurt? But I do think, like, look, let it be. Let it be, and maybe I'm being selective, and maybe if this was happening in a different series, I would say suspend them all. I don't know that we truly want that. I mean, there are no punches thrown. Like, if somebody left the bench, and really who we're talking about, it's Randall and it's Bones and it's Gordon and Valanciunas. Right? Because everybody else was on the court and they're allowed to get into a dust-up. It's the guys who leave the bench. I don't think either team should have anybody suspended. I really don't. But as to what caused the skirmish at the end of the game, this is something that plagued baseball for many years. It's the unwritten rules. Here's David Adelman on the layup by McDaniel. Actually, if you didn't hear it, here's how it sounded on altitude.
Layup on the other. Jokic was pissed off that McDaniel shot a layup. Now he's getting into it with him.
Everybody just let the game go.
Yeah. Why? I'm not sure why McDaniels, the bonehead, made a layup with 1 second left.
You know why he did it? By the way, amazing call by Cause and Scott Hastings. But you know why he did it. He was the guy that called out all of the Nuggets for being bad defenders. He was doing it to be a jerk. So I think my opinion on all of this just has to do with, is it the act that's the problem or is it the person? David Adelman is making it seem like it's the act itself that was beyond what was necessary.
I didn't like what McDaniels did. The game is over. The game was conceded both ways. In 2026, that stuff just doesn't happen anymore. That's something that happens in the 80s where teams would continue to score. But that's who he is, and so if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do.
Okay. And he started to get to it towards the end. If it was, notice that Mike Conley is not receiving any real hate for he's the one that threw the pass. He could have just held on to the ball and let the clock run out, but he chose to throw it up there. So there's two reasons why nobody's going after Mike Conley. Okay. One is because he immediately, if you watch the replay, went, oh, what am I doing? Like, why am I throwing it forward? There's no reason to. So he immediately acknowledged there's no reason for him to do anything other than just hang on to the ball. And he went into further detail after the game and said, I knew I've been in this league for a long time. I knew I shouldn't have done it. And the second reason why Mike Conley is not getting trashed today is because he's Mike Conley and not Jaden Daniels. I would say, with quite a bit of belief behind this, any other player has that layup. I don't know that it elicits the exact reaction that Jaden McDaniels of all people does. Now, you could also make the argument the only person who would shoot the layup would Jaden McDaniels, and that is fair. So I don't like the unwritten rule necessarily of you can't take. And by the way, didn't Bruce Brown heave up a half-court shot at the buzzer after that happened? So why is it okay for Jaden McDaniels, or not okay for Jaden McDaniels to do it, but Bruce Brown heaves one up at the buzzer, and we see half-court heaves at the buzzer of almost every NBA game, right? So where was the retribution for Bruce Brown? What it is Jaden McDaniels. He was doing it to be a punk. He wasn't just goofing off. He did it intentionally. And bad on Mike Conley for giving him the ball and giving him an opportunity to do that. I think the person who did it matters far more than the act itself. And there are any number of things that Jaden McDaniels could have done at the end of that basketball game that would have elicited that kind of reaction. Just him looking at one of the Nuggets players would probably send them into a rage. That dude has been public enemy number one. So I guess what I'm saying here is that I don't necessarily have a problem with a guy laying it up when everyone else is giving up. I for years, I pushed back against the unwritten rules of baseball because I thought that they were lame. And I get the unwritten rules of baseball had to do with competition. This is a situation where no one is competing and you're getting a cheap layup. I don't think it was to pad McDaniel's stats. If it was Mike Conley, I don't know that Nikola Jokic runs down the court and gets into it with him. So I think I don't blame Nikola Jokic at all. I just think the reason why he did that is because it's Jaden McDaniels, not because Minnesota broke one of the unwritten rules of basketball. Right? If anyone else would have done it, it's still like, why are you doing that, dude? But it's Jaden McDaniels, and he's doing it to stick it to the Denver Nuggets. Retribution is necessary, and I don't, not for a second do I disagree with Nikola Jokic's lack of remorse for going after Jaden McDaniels.
I don't regret.
I don't regret. I think I might tattoo that on my neck. I do not regret. RAGRETS. I do not regret. Meet the Millers, right? Is that movie with Jason Sudeikis? Ray confirms that. Watch the movie. It's a good one. You might have a few days before your favorite hockey team or basketball team, for that matter, is back in action. So maybe check that one out. But at any rate, yeah, I think Nikola Jokic had every right to go get in the face of Jaden McDaniels because he knew why he was doing it. It wasn't just somebody goofing off at the end of the game. That was Jaden McDaniels twisting the knife, rubbing salt in the wound, whatever metaphor you want to use, and it has to be answered. If the roles were reversed, Jaden McDaniels throws the ball up the court and Mike Conley lays it up, I think Nikola Jokic is still going after Jaden McDaniels. I think Nikola Jokic just wanted a reason to go at Jaden McDaniels is basically my entire point here. But I don't blame him. It's not so much about the act itself as the person who did it. And I think that for a long time in baseball was what fueled that. It wasn't just anybody, pimping a home run or whatever. It was certain guys that the pitchers had problems with doing that caused a lot of the issues there. But no suspensions. And I think I'm good with that. The leaving the bench thing, I just feel like people can weaponize and be like, see, he kind of left the bench and he technically left the bench just to try and get guys in trouble. It wasn't malice at the palace. It was a skirmish. Yeah, a couple of guys technically left the bench. Let's say the Wolves keep their players, Nuggets keep theirs, and away we go here with Game 5 tonight. 719-24-7, 1313. Take your thoughts. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. We'll introduce some Broncos into the conversation. The NFL draft, if you missed it, was over the weekend. There are a few new Broncos. Tell you about one in particular that has people very interested. And, of course, the Colorado Avalanche make light work of the LA Kings. More after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Colorado Springs' news and talk station. That's what we are. And Extra Sports 1300, or you're listening on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download and free to use. And they're sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. You can also watch the show live anywhere you scroll, as long as it's at 740 KVOR or at Extra Sports 1300. The number to call or to text, if you so choose, is 719-247-1313. Perhaps these three stories that are driving the show are what you want to talk about today. All right, let's actually this time start with the good news, shall we?
McCarr has it at the point. Shimmy, shake, make the earthquake. Cale McCarr, he shoots and scores! Oh, hail Cale! McCarr, Shania Twain his way into the far circle and let it rip for his second goal of the series in as many games. With 14-12, they are in the second period in Los Angeles. Cale Douglas McCarr has Colorado up 2-0.
It could only be Connor McGahey, right, on the Altitude Sports Radio Network. You heard it on Extra Sports 1300. What does he Shania Twain's? Can someone explain that to me? That don't impress me much. What song is that? What this is about? I don't know. What a call from Connor. That dude is one of a kind. That was the goal where I thought that's a wrap. And not only did I think it was a wrap for the series, I thought that game 4 could get a little out of hand, and the final score tells you that it did. 5-1 is your final. The Colorado Avalanche they pushed back. LA Kings were trying to push the Avs. The Avs pushed them back, played exactly the game that LA wanted them to, and it didn't matter. It still ended up being a 4-game sweep. I do think that it's good to see that Cale McCarr has goals in the last 2 games, that Nathan McKinnon popped up with a goal, a power play goal nonetheless. But we got to be a little bit honest with ourselves. Like, with the amount of time they're going to have off till the next round and who the next round is going to be against, and I don't care whether it's Minnesota or Dallas from this perspective, both teams are much better than LA. So to me, I guess the Avalanche being able to commit to a tight checking, low scoring type game is good, but I just feel like we're in for a complete reset going into round 2. We'll see. But it was always going to be so different going from LA to the winner of the Minnesota-Dallas series. But now that that series is a sweep, Minnesota and Dallas might be playing till Father's Day at this rate. It just feels like anything that happens in this series, you really can't take it to the next one. But this is not a bad thing. Like, don't misunderstand me. It is very good that the Avalanche are getting this time off. It is well deserved. They played a terrific series. But it allows them to completely reset. And Jared Bednar talked about that. And it's going to go up a notch now. And he's not meaning it necessarily in terms of the competition, but I think that is also true. The competition, the stakes, especially if it ends up being Dallas, are going to be much higher than in this series. But for now, it's full credit to the Colorado Avalanche. They played the type of game that casuals did not understand that they are capable of playing. tight checking, low scoring, relying on goaltending. They got it done. And now they get to enjoy the rest of the Minnesota-Dallas series like the rest of us before they really get their postseason run going. 5-1, the final. Cale, McKinnon, among others, the goal scorers for the Avs. Scott Wedgwood, very good again. I want to get this in there. No reason to start Mackenzie Blackwood game 1. This is Scott Wedgwood's net until further notice. Now let's go to what happened on Saturday. Story number 2.
Dosumnu has it on the high right side. Takes a 3. Ball game. Denver is going to lose game number 4 at the Target Center in Minneapolis.
They did. Cause knows of what he speaks. He never, when he says it's ball game or this one is over, it usually is. The Denver Nuggets, I did think were better to start game 4 than they had been in game 3. But ultimately, sometime when ABC cut away to the White House, the Nuggets completely lost it. And what will go down is the Ao de Sumo game. And David Adelman can defend his team's effort level all he wants to. And he can talk about how they didn't make shots. The Ao de Sumo game is only possible if the Denver Nuggets cannot defend. It just is. Like, credit to the young man. He was terrific. Seems like a very nice dude. Not like that jerk Jaden McDaniels. But come on. If you could play playoff caliber defense, you don't let Ao de Sumo torch you for 40 after Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo both leave the game with injuries that will keep them out for the rest of this series. But therein lies why I can't say definitively it comes to an end tonight, because the Wolves are up 3-1. And they do not have Anthony Edwards, and they do not have Dante DiVincenzo. I cannot, with 100% certainty, say that the Denver Nuggets are going to lose tonight's game. I still am very certain that they're not going to win this series. But they very well could stave off elimination tonight. Although maybe the Bones Highland game is coming up tonight. Not that my confidence is very high in the Denver Nuggets right now, but when Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo are both out again, can't completely count them out. Should be more interesting than it would have been if the Nuggets would have lost to a team with Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo on it the other night, certainly. 8:30 tonight on Extra Sports 1300. Let's move to story number 3, the other big sporting event of the weekend.
Jonah's come in for a visit. We spent a lot of time with him. I saw something that compared his running style, and I think the comparison was JK, and I think that is a compliment, obviously, to the way Dobbins runs, and he's a physical runner. So we were real familiar with him.
That is Broncos coach Sean Payton talking about Jonah Coleman of Washington, who the Broncos selected in the 4th round. It was interesting from George Payton. After night 2 of the draft, they made just the one pick, and then he said that with 2 4th-round picks, the 4th round was going to define this draft. And wouldn't you know it, in that 4th round, the Broncos may have found a steal in Jonah Coleman. And I mean that with all sincerity. Because on some draft boards, he was the 3rd best running back in this draft. Now, a little bit slow to hit the hole, kind of like Mike Washington, which was part of the reason why I said the Broncos shouldn't use their 3rd-round pick on Washington, and they didn't. But at a 4th-round selection with what else Jonah Coleman brings to the table, I see the vision. You know, we've been talking about, do you really trust J.K. Dobbins to stay healthy all season? Well, now you got a guy, and I see it. I see it. I didn't see it before. I see it now, and I can't unsee it. He runs the ball like J.K. Dobbins. So he's going to be a rookie. It's certainly not the ideal scenario. I'm not saying an injury to J.K. Dobbins this year for the Denver Broncos would be anything but bad. But I see the vision with this particular pick, and I think immediately Jonah Coleman becomes the guy out of this draft that maybe you can see making an impact out of some difficult circumstances, perhaps, but I could see it. Everyone else, with all due respect, these were projects. These are for the future. These are depth guys. Jonah Coleman with the, you got one guy with a history of injuries. You got another guy that's going into year 2 with no guarantee that RJ Harvey is going to pop this year. We know there's room for a third guy, maybe not all of them getting equal carries, but there's room for a third guy in that running back room. I think Jonah Coleman could be that guy. And if J.K. Dobbins goes down, then the opportunity is even greater for Jonah Coleman. So I think of the Broncos selections, I have to say Jonah Coleman is my favorite. And I think he is the guy that is most likely to make some sort of impact. I think everyone else is just stockpiling and in putting them away and trying to, Monday through Friday, coach them up. So one day when this roster gets more expensive because they start paying Bo Nix, one of these guys can kind of break through. Now, other than Coleman, I don't think any of the Broncos picks really should get you overly excited. I'd still temper your enthusiasm slightly for Jonah Coleman, but if anybody in this Broncos draft class is going to make an impact in year 1, I got to believe it's him. Jonah Coleman, the running back out of Washington, one of the 2 fourth-round picks the Denver Broncos made this weekend in what turned out to be kind of a nondescript draft, wasn't it? Not a ton going on. I will say 2 things just to kind of piggyback on the draft conversation. Best moment of the draft. And I know if you're a Falcons fan, you hated this dude. But Eli Heidenreich, I pointed him out as somebody I thought that the Broncos might be interested in. But for Eli Heidenreich, and I didn't know he was from Pittsburgh, but for him to be in his Navy uniform, to be drafted by his hometown team, to be there, to be able to walk out onto the stage at the draft that is held in his hometown, that was easily and by far the best moment of the weekend. I am not going to remember much of this draft. I don't think we're going to be talking about a lot of players in this draft for years to come. And I don't know what I like Eli Heidenreich as a football player. But in terms of moments, in terms of what I'm going to recall when somebody brings up this draft, it's going to be that moment where he got to walk out on stage. And maybe the best thing is he doesn't play for Navy anymore. That is music to Troy Calhoun's ears. But that was a really, really cool moment. And the rest was just kind of like, meh. I mean, how about the quarterbacks too? Remember when everyone said that no one's going to take a quarterback after Cam Ward? Because why would you waste a pick on a quarterback when next year's class is going to be so good? And this year's class was basically, if you go by where these guys were drafted, was just as bad as last year's. Mendoza went 1 and we didn't. And then you got one that I think people would view Ty Simpson as a reach, but because he's being coached by McVay, you're like, I might work out. And then Nussmeier goes to the Chiefs late. Aller goes to Pittsburgh in round 3. Like, those were the 2 guys that were going to be battling out for the top pick. Fernando Mendoza wasn't on anybody's mind. Maybe does speak to, hey, if you're in a position and you kind of like a quarterback, you might as well just grab him. Because next year they're already lining up. Oh, Arch Manning and this and that. We already went through the Arch Manning thing. If you kind of like a quarterback and you think you might be able to do something with him, just draft the dude. I'm not saying you got to draft him number 1 overall, but just draft the dude and figure it out. If you don't like the guy after first, you could spend a 5th rounder on Garrett Nussmeier the next year. But this was supposed to be an amazing quarterback draft. That's why nobody wanted Shador and these other guys. Take your thoughts on the NFL draft and, of course, the Avs and the Nuggets. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, do we know if Aaron Gordon will play tonight? And why in the world was he playing in Game 4 anyway? Game 3. I wish it was game 3. Turn back the clock and see if the Nuggets can fare any better. Game 5 tonight. Denver and Minnesota, 8:30 on Extra Sports 1300, or you could watch the game at the Brass Tap. Very excited to be partnering with those guys up there off of Bass Pro Drive. Go out, check the game out. I know there's been a lot of talk about maybe not being able to watch the games. Brass Tap has got them, and they're offering $3.50 pints, Coors Light, Coors Banquet, Miller Lite, and Mountain Time. Check them out tonight or any of the playoff games. We know we got more for the hockey team of record. We'll see what happens with the basketball team tonight. To wit, like to go to the text line at 719-247-1313. Producer Ray decked out in a jersey that if he would have asked my opinion on it, I would not have advised him, but it's my own personal baggage that I do not like 5280. I hate it. I think it's corny AF, and I don't like it, but it looks good on you.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of it either, but it goes with my shoes.
There you go.
I got the AG 5280 shoes. So
oh, you have the AGs?
Yeah.
What is the price difference between the AGs and the Jokic's? Are the Jokic's more expensive, or are they about the same price?
I mean, this was a gift, so I don't.
So $0.
It's $0, and I got Jokic socks on. I'm trying to show all the support. All right. From Albert, Nuggets disrespect. East Coast media bias is real. Best evidence is with college athletics, but exists at the pro level too.
The Nuggets getting disrespect?
That's what it says. Nuggets disrespect. Like there's a question mark right after it.
Who's disrespecting the Wolves?
Yeah, the Wolves are bad.
I don't think we're just. I think we're calling the Nuggets out for exactly what they are. To be quite honest.
Yeah.
Next one.
From the 719, I'm not even excited about Coleman. He's a third stringer.
Yeah, and he's referring to Jonah Coleman, the running back out of Washington. Like, yeah, that's what he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
However, if J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, and I'm not, and it sounds like I'm trying. Look, the fact of the matter is the Denver Broncos did not have a pick forever in a draft that doesn't seem like one of the best we have had.
Yeah.
So you have to recalibrate what you're expecting. If Jonah Coleman can be an active participant on Sundays in some form or fashion, I think that's good. And if this guy, and I'm telling you, watch his highlight reels, he does run a lot like J.K. Dobbins. If they can develop him and something were to happen to J.K. Dobbins, then you'd have somebody that brings a very similar type of running style to the table. None of this is to say that Jonah Coleman is the missing piece to a Denver Broncos Super Bowl run. But I'm just saying you're looking at a bunch of players that the Broncos took. We talk about this after every draft. If there is one guy that you could be, I don't want to say excited, intrigued. I think intrigued is the right word. I am intrigued by Jonah Coleman. I am intrigued by no one else in this Broncos draft class. He's the only guy where I'm like, all right, I'd like to see how this guy fares. That's all I'm saying. But the Broncos were always going to get third stringers, right? With the draft capital that they had, plus they don't have a lot of holes on the roster. So this was inevitable. I thought one thing that they should do more of, more linemen. If there was one criticism, like Emmanuel Pregnon, who I had talked about for 2 weeks, was right there for the Broncos to take him. I thought he could be a day one starter if need be, and they passed on him. So I didn't love the Broncos draft by any stretch, but again, Jonah Coleman, interesting. I think I'll be keeping tabs on him. Everyone else, I with all due respect, Yeah, we'll see you in like 2 years.
So on Facebook,
Uh-huh.
do the Nuggets stay alive tonight? We got
That is
Eric.
the question. Do the Nuggets stay alive tonight?
We have Eric. Nope. They're too soft. When I was watching it with my father-in-law, soft came out of his mouth 100 times that.
And this is you. You're not on camera. So this is Ray talking about watching with his father-in-law, not Eric.
Oh, yeah. Apologies. Yes. When Ray was watching Game 4, soft was the word of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree.
But you did say that they played better to start the game, right?
So this is what I think happened. Like they played better to start the game. They weren't missing a bunch of shots. DiVincenzo and Ant go down. And like you said,
that should have been a wrap.
That it should have been. It should have been. Like I was texting my mom. I was texting everyone. I was like, I couldn't text you. So I'm texting everybody. I'm like, if we lose this game, I don't know if we deserve this series. But
well, they don't. And that gets back to, and not to interrupt, but that gets back to what I'm saying. This team is in a no-win situation.
Right.
We're going to give them zero credit for winning this series, and we're going to be torching them if they lose tonight.
Yeah. So, but what, like you said, is Timberwolves started running off of adrenaline. Whole team was like, we got to play better. Someone needs to step up.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, they did, obviously. Right. And they felt we need to play 10 times better. And it felt like the Nuggets were kind of not coasting, but for the lack of better term, it was.
It was almost like, I don't want to say overconfident, but like this idea of, well, of course we're going to win this.
Right.
Of course we're going to win this game now, without actually putting in the work to do it. And then, you know, that stretch where Minnesota felt like they forced 8 turnovers and completely flipped that game the other way.
And what was so messed up about that, the commentary team right before the first one was like, the Nuggets haven't turned over the ball at all.
Well, I think that's fair. They have one. I think they had one before that
turnover, and then it just went.
Yeah. But you're right, because the Timberwolves, in a really difficult situation, got a player in Ayo DeSumo to play the game of his life. And I think he seems like a really good dude, and doesn't seem like Jaden McDaniels has been a bad influence on him. But the Nuggets didn't need that. They didn't need their own Ayo DeSumo. But you look at the box score and watch that game. Like, we talk about how Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, they have to be at their best in order for the Nuggets to win. I grant you. But who is the other guy that did anything, it felt like, for the Denver Nuggets? It was like, can you think of one play that anybody not named Jokic or Murray made in that game? Other than, and I'll give you one, I bet you can recall most of the time that Aaron Gordon was on the floor.
Yeah.
Because we were all very much focused on how does he look? And the answer was not great. More on that in a moment. But I asked you a question.
No one. You had Tim Hardaway couldn't make a shot, couldn't make free throws.
Nope.
You had Christian Brown, who does what. Well, I'll give Christian Brown one. He had a couple long shots that I thought would give him confidence. It didn't. But yeah, Cam Johnson didn't do good. Bruce Brown didn't. Again, no one steps up.
Yeah, the Wolves got, and Bones Highland. As much as that pains Nuggets fans, let's look at the contributions that Bones Highland made.
Well, it's personal.
He was important. It is personal for him. He was unprofessional. He demanded a trade, and yet he's mad at the Denver Nuggets. Like I know you just got to say things, Bones, but like, don't act like we don't know what happened here.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have a collective amnesia. We know what your problems were, and you were the one that wanted out of Denver.
They were about to give him the keys to the kingdom. They were about to make him like another face of the franchise.
Right. He is basically a more modern Emmanuel Mudiay. That's basically what Bones Highland is. They really liked him. early you thought there was something, and then he just terrible. And then he was, and I'll say this for Moutier, I don't think Moutier ever, left games on his own or demanded trades, but that did not work out. But no, it is, you're right, Ray. It is personal for him.
It is. Another comment from Rich. It's not looking good. I think they stay alive, but they aren't winning the series. Hard to believe it, but it looks like mental toughness is what's going to do them in.
Here's David Adelman answering that comment.
You don't think we were competitive tonight?
You don't think we were competitive tonight? Not as competitive as Minnesota, and that's my point. Were you more competitive than you had been in the previous game? Yes. Were you as competitive as Minnesota? No. Nope. And maybe being on the brink of elimination brings it out of them tonight. But you and I were discussing this during the break, Ray. How these last potential 3 games. So you think they'll win tonight?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I kind of do too.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a game 6, which we both think that the Wolves win. Are we in agreement on that? Or you? Okay, I'll just put myself out there on. I think that the Nuggets win tonight. They have some pride in front of their home fans. They win tonight, and then they get beat in game 6. And then we don't look at, wow, the Nuggets really battled. It was like Minnesota killed them. It just happened the last 6 games. Basically, the inverse of what I said this series was going to be. Shouts to me for making the complete opposite prediction of the way that this series has gone. But what you have brought up, and I don't know where you stand on whether you think that the Nuggets will win game 6 or not, but you are of the mind that if the Nuggets win game 6, you think they win game 7 too?
Yeah, if they win game 6, I think they come back to Denver, and it's they get a 19-point lead and they don't blow it.
I think you may be right. I just think that the crux of it all is that they have to go back to Minnesota and win game 6, and I just don't believe that they're going to be able to do that.
Minnesota's a tough place to win.
And that crowd's going to be, cuckoo bananas after everything that has happened. I'm Wolves plus 11.5. Give me that for tonight. But I do kind of feel like the Nuggets are going to win. And I guess it would be apropos. If I'm not literally betting on the Nuggets, but if I throw my lot in with the Nuggets and say, I think that they will win, and they lose, then that would just sum up the season perfectly, because I have put my faith in them to a degree, and they have not returned the favor.
I mean, it's like all these games, right? Every game, I'm like, I think they're going to win
this.
I think they're going to win it. Game 4, I was like, there's no way they lose. They have to still win, and that will happen. But
right, and none of this is about the Nuggets ultimately winning the series.
Right.
This is just about a game. Like one game. The Nuggets don't win the series. I don't think that you could say they're going to win the series if they win tonight. I'm kind of with you, though, if they win these next 2 with a Wolves team led by Ayo Dosunmu. Like, let's test that out a little bit and see if he can keep delivering through the next 3 games. But I think it would be fitting. You know what? I'll put my lot in with the Nuggets one more time and say they won tonight. And if they lose, then I will say it's quite fitting and appropriate for what this has gone. Is that I still think to the bitter end that the Denver Nuggets are capable than more than what they showed. And they showed once again that they are definitely not capable of more than what they have shown.
We got another text right before that. I want to say shouts to me, because everybody kept saying Nuggets Spurs round 2.
Who's me? The texter or Ray?
Me.
There's a texter that's giving you credit?
Okay, I got to start putting pauses. I'm saying before I read this text, shouts to me. I straight said, don't overlook the Wolves.
You did say that.
Because everybody,
You did say that, and you're also turning around and picking the Nuggets to win in 7 games.
I still have faith, but like everybody thought they would be done in 4 or 5, and I
You
knew
did do
the
that.
Wolves are going to give them.
But to be fair, because I'm a master of bending people's minds to my will. I did have you convinced that the Nuggets were going to move past Minnesota.
Yeah,
like admit that
you did.
Like you stuck with your pick of the Nuggets.
Yeah,
you said that the Nuggets would win. You stuck with it's not going to be easy breezy. But I did, because you started it where you were like, I'm really worried about Minnesota. I made you feel better about it, and for that I apologize. Because you should have.
You're right.
You were absolutely right the
Let
whole
me
time.
keep my expectations low.
That's right.
Don't get my hopes up.
Don't say that the Nuggets will win tonight. Say they're going to lose.
I can't say it. Okay.
Okay. Now the text.
The text
that is not giving themselves credit like some people.
Oh, from the 719. We're going to take the punishment the Nuggets dole out tonight and be thankful for the Avs. Steve.
Yeah, I just the good kid, bad kid dynamic. Like, I just can't let go of that metaphor. You just look at the Nuggets and you're like, what is wrong with you? And then you look at the Avs and you're like, you're perfect. You're just great. Have no problems whatsoever. Which, by the way, that will pass, because we need to have a conversation about the Avs power play coming up tomorrow. But look, they swept the Kings. They, other than the power play, they checked every box. They played exactly the way LA wanted them to play, and they still beat them. Scott Wedgwood has been brilliant. It's just like you can do no wrong, Avalanche.
Yeah.
You are the favorite child right now.
Even if they lost one game, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. They'll bounce back.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we went through this a little bit last year, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
With just the shoe being on the other foot. The Avs not able to get the job done against Dallas, and it was my father always used to be this way. My father was, all the way through all Colorado teams. And I keep saying this, the biggest disappointment of his life is that I became a Chiefs fan. But Rockies, Broncos, Nuggets, he wasn't a big hockey guy. But Rockies, Broncos, and Nuggets, he always used to, every game that one of those teams will lose. Well, at least we got the other team. Well, at least we got the other team, and it would swing back and forth. I feel like for the last few years, honestly, it is almost always been, at least we have the Avs. The Avs have given us far less disappointment over the last few years, even though they've come up short of winning their ultimate prize as well. I just find that most days I get on this show and I have more negative to say about the Denver Nuggets, but I think it's fair for what it's worth.
Yeah.
That it?
Yes, that's
all right.
it.
Good job by you.
Thanks.
719-24/7-1313. Is Aaron Gordon playing tonight or not? One last check next. Game 5, Nuggets looking to stay alive. You could hear it at 8:30 on Extra Sports 1300. We do not know whether Aaron Gordon will be playing tonight, which I guess is a piece of information that we should have integrated into our equation here as we're deciding whether the Nuggets are going to win tonight. I think their chances of winning, despite what's going on with Minnesota, go down by a decent margin if Aaron Gordon doesn't play. I will go so far as to say if Aaron Gordon plays and is at least halfway decent health-wise, then the Nuggets win. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even know that Aaron Gordon plays tonight. I don't know, but you watched him play, and and Richard Jefferson was on it from the jump. He don't look right. He just doesn't. And he looked a little similar to Game 7 against OKC, Aaron Gordon. Like, it just looked like he was laboring. He didn't trust the calf, and he just wasn't effective. And David Adelman finally came to the realization that he just couldn't keep the guy in the game.
I thought it was unfair for me to keep him out there, to be honest. I felt like he was really laboring the second half.
Which begs the question, why does he play in the first place? Here's Aaron Gordon being Aaron Gordon, which is what you love about him, and you're going to hate that the Nuggets don't have it when he's gone. Here's Aaron Gordon on why, yet again, despite having an injury that would almost assuredly have most players sitting out, he decided to play.
Just trying to give my guys a boost from the start. I got to talk to the training staff and kind of see where I go from here.
Aaron Gordon is everything that is right and wrong for the Denver Nuggets at the same time. He's everything right because he is somebody that is going to lay it all out there to try and help his team win. He is selfless. He has done this 2 postseasons in a row now. When you see other stars, Kevin Durant, sitting out and being absent from the team, here's Aaron Gordon being on the court, not even in an elimination game, just a big game, an important game, being there for his teammates. But he's also everything that's wrong with the Denver Nuggets. And why I say that is, one, because there are not many guys on that team, not enough guys on that team that have Aaron Gordon's mentality. Why does it look like, and we've got texts in today about this repeatedly, why does it look like the Denver Nuggets don't care? Why does it look like the Denver Nuggets aren't trying? It's because they only have one Aaron Gordon who is severely limited, and then he didn't play in the second half. They just don't have enough of those guys. If they had 3 more Aaron Gordons, or 3 more guys with Aaron Gordon's mentality, even, maybe one of these games would have gone a different way. And it bothered you when Jaden McDaniels said what he said and no one went back at him. It bothered you even more, as it should, that the Nuggets didn't go back at Jaden McDaniels on the court, did nothing to prove him wrong. Because I think the only guy that could prove him wrong, if we're being honest, is Aaron Gordon. Because he would have that want to prove him wrong, but also he's the only guy that can play playoff caliber defense to prove Jaden McDaniels wrong. So that's why I say Aaron Gordon is everything that's right and wrong with the Denver Nuggets at the same time. If more guys took a cue from Aaron Gordon, maybe this series would look different. I know if they have more players like Aaron Gordon, this series would be different. but he's also what's wrong because you see that his mentality just seems so much different than some of these other players. That's urgency, what you're hearing from Aaron Gordon. I got to give my guys a boost. That's urgency. When you hear, oh, we're not going to panic for the last 2 games from Christian Brown, I think he pulled that line back out after game 4. Game 4. Said after game 3, we're not going to panic. And then he was as bad in game 4 as he was game 3. And I think he pulled out the same line about not panicking. How about just like an intense emotion from you of something? Anger, happiness, sadness, panic, disgust. What are the other characters on Inside Out? Hunger, dopey. No, that's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I don't know. Look, if I'm not guaranteeing that this team comes back and wins this series based on tonight, I don't think that they have earned the belief to think that one night is anything more than just that one night where maybe they put it together against a severely shorthanded Wolves team and found a way to win on their home court. But man, they got to win tonight, right? They can't. Every game, I'm like, it can't get worse. It can't get worse. It can. I've been shown it can get worse, but I can't. Not tonight. Come on. In front of your home fans, maybe one last time. Can't put together, whether it's effort, energy, execution, I don't care. Pick any word that starts with E. If you got to get it done tonight. And then you go to Minnesota, and yeah, probably it ends, and we're having some very difficult and emotionally charged conversations about the future of this Denver Nuggets team. But just tonight, for the people who are paying a ton of money to go to the game, like give them one last positive memory of the season for the Denver Nuggets. And then if you go and get boat raced in Minnesota, then at least we'll have tonight. But come on. I can't. They absolutely can lose tonight, but they can't. If you get what I'm saying. Muster whatever you need to muster. Collect whatever you need to collect. Do what you got to do. Send this series back to Minnesota. Make it a little interesting. Put a little bit of the pressure on them. Because if we get a repeat of, let's say, game 2 in game 5, it's going to be even worse tomorrow. Even worse. 8:30 tonight, Extra Sports 1300. If you're looking for a place to watch the game, the Brass Tap off Bass Pro Drive, 350 pints, Coors Light, Coors Banquet, Miller Lite, and Mountain Time. Tomorrow, back to discuss whatever may happen in game 5, a little bit more on the Avalanche and what they were able to do against the LA Kings and what they weren't able to do. And whatever else may come up over the next 24 hours. Appreciate your patronage. My thanks to Ray Dominguez here in studio with me. Enjoy your evening. If you're listening on KVOR, it will be Mark Levin. On Extra Sports, it will be Westwood One Sports Talk Radio until, of course, 8 o'clock when our coverage of the Nuggets and Wolves begins. Enjoy your evening. At least try to, with the Nuggets on the schedule. Talk tomorrow.